What's up, guys? This is Zarthon from the future. The Zarthon in this video, he's going to talk to you and tell you that the trait information is in this video. He's lying to you. It's actually in the other video that I made. I made every other part. All of the other bot information is going to be in this video, but I made it and it was like 22 minutes long. And at that point, I was like, half the people are just going to come looking for the trait information anyway. So I figured I would just make it its own separate video. If you hear me in this video talking about, oh, it'll be later in the video, we'll get to it. We do not get to it in this video. It's in the other one. This is just about all of the other like information and how to use the bot and whatnot. All right, this is the Radar Bot tutorial or how-to video. I'm just going to kind of go through all the stuff it does and the commands you can use and any issues that there might be with it. If you're here just to find out what the different traits or tags are at the bottom of the card, this should be split up into different sections, so you can just skip further down into the video, and I should explain that in depth later. So what it'll do is take your score for 10 main stats that are used in the IDR sheet. Offensive ones are over here, defensive ones are all over here, as well as demos and like demos taken and demos inflicted. And it plots it according to your percentile. So how much you do of a certain thing compared to your tier. So we've got the markers for each ring right here. If you have a stat right on the 50% line, it means you have like the average score for the tier, and anything less than that is below average. Anything above it is above average. Stats against are calculated like inversely for everything you want to be in the green area. That means it's a better score. So having a like higher score for goals against just means that you concede less goals. So for all the stats against, a bigger score is still a good thing. So to go through every stat on the chart real quick, we've got at the top demos taken per game, then points per game, goals per game, assists per game, shots per game, saves against per game, demos inflicted per game, saves per goal against, shots against per game, assists against per game, goals against per game, and points against per game. I opted to use saves per goal against as opposed to pure saves because saves are kind of an iffy stat. Like they're a good thing to have, if you're getting shot on, but it's not something that you want to be doing a whole lot of because you're probably not playing a whole lot of offense. Doing it this way kind of keeps it relative to how much defense a team has to play. So you're not just rewarded for like racking up saves if you're stuck in your half the whole game. All right, so there is a multitude of different ways to actually like access the bot and use it. Firstly, you can do it in the bot input channel in RSC. Just run the command, and then when it prompts you for a player, put whoever's name in you want to look up, and boom, there they are. And you can also just DM the bot and do it that way through like private messages. And one thing to look at here is it'll prompt you 3 times for a player. Like if you look up somebody and it can't find them on the IDR sheet, it'll let you know you have like 3 tries to enter the name correctly. Usually it should be accurate if the sheets are up as to if a player is or isn't in there. Up here we have a good example of a name that might throw people off at first. Like double check the IDR sheet if it doesn't work at first, because this definitely looks like 2 L's right there, or it did at first. It's actually 2 I's. If there's any kind of discrepancy, it has to match exactly. It's not case sensitive, but all of the letters, numbers, and symbols have to match up. And finally, if you want to put the app on your own server for whatever reason, you can go to this link. Oh, wait, let me drag that over. which will take you to this like document. We'll touch on all that trait stuff later. This right here is actually the link to install it wherever, and it'll just walk you through the stuff. You select the server, blah, blah, blah. One last thing is it usually takes it only takes a couple of seconds for it to respond once you run the command, like maximum of 3, assuming the bot is running and everything's going smoothly. And you'll have 60 seconds to actually give it an answer before it times you out, and you have to do the command again. Sometimes it can take a couple of seconds to actually generate your chart. So, especially for commands using multiple players and it's doing multiple at once, but it's usually only a few seconds for it to process all that. You can also, if you start the command and then you decide you used the wrong one or you don't want to do it anymore, you can just type cancel and that will end that command without giving any type of like response or feedback to you. Okay, so as far as commands that you can run go, we have the manual ones starting out. I just call them manual because for all of these down here, if you're doing multiple players, you will put the players in one by one and for like a maximum of 3 inputs. And we'll go down the list and take a look at each one and what's on those charts. So this is one player right here. PR tier is one player, but before you do a search, you specify what tier you're looking for them in, mainly for players that have subbed up and have played in 2 different tiers across the season. Down here, it's PR2, 2 players with separate shapes. It just takes 2 players' stats and plots them on top of each other, where PR2C, the C is for combined, it averages their stats and then just puts one shape on the chart for where those average stats fall. And PR3 and PR3C, it's just the same as these two, but with 3 players instead of 2. There we go. So the auto team ones are the ones where you just search up a team and it will pull the players from that team automatically and send them all to you at once. Removes the need in most cases for you to type in multiple names, save you some time. And PRM will just send them to you one by one, each individual chart. PRS sends them all at one time and they're all visible in the same preview. I know that one's pretty popular. This one takes a little longer, not by much, just a few seconds because it doesn't actually embed anything to send it quicker. It stores them all as their own picture and sends all the pictures at once for the team. And then down here, it's just the same as PR3, but it sorts the players by games played and uses the top 3 to make the lineup that's used in these charts. I just realized this video is already like 5 minutes long. I really need to stop saying and like. I'm terrible at recording this stuff, but we're going to start with the PR command, which is the most detailed one for a singular player, and we'll just go from left to right, top to bottom. So up here we've got your franchise logo for whatever franchise you play for, the whatever season you're on. We're on season 23 right now. Your name, your RPV score right here, and then you'll have your positional stat over here. And it is positional stats, not what third of the field you're in the most, because everybody spends the most time, like everybody spends the most time in the defensive third, because you've always got to rotate back to get a hit on the ball. But it's where you spend the most time compared to the rest of the tier for that particular third of the field. So there'll be an A for attack, an M for midfield, D for defense, and G for goalie, which is just the defensive third, but you're also in the top 25% for saves. So staying back and making a lot of saves, that's what gets you the goalie one. It's a little bit different. You've obviously got the big chart right here, and this background color is based on your RPV range, how high or low you are on that compared to the tier. So if your score's in the bottom third, you get like a bronze background. Silver's the middle third, gold's most of the top third, except for platinum, which is the top 10%. And that is pretty consistent across all the cards, except for ones when you get closer to the top. If you have like any comprehensive traits, which we'll touch on in a minute, you'll have like an entirely different background. But anyways, here at the bottom, it'll list your tier, the team you play for, and your games played. There'll also be a little gradient down here that indicates the tier because all of this text is going to be really small when you look at it on Discord. If you're a free agent, it'll say so down here, and you'll just have the RSC logo up here. And then below that, it'll be your tags or traits. And to actually be in the data set to like part of the players that you're getting compared against in the tier, you have to have played a full series worth of games in the first half of the season, and that expands to 8 in the second half of the season. Just to, well, for players like me who have only played 2, if you only play a couple games, you could have really high averages or really low averages for those games that really skew the data. You see that a lot of times. You'll have like a really high SBV or IDR score for players with less than a series played, sometimes a little more than a series played. And that kind of throws everything else off. So this is just kind of to cut out the majority of the outliers that have those insane scores that are over 100 or kind of in the negatives. Yeah, case in point, me. It's kind of hilarious because I literally just made that last slide yesterday and then took a break to go and play matches and literally became the example I was talking about. Uh, the timeline on that is perfect. But yeah, so this is what happens with players with a really low number of games played. A lot of the time, you'll have some insanely like high scores that max everything out, and really kind of was like spiky type of radar because it's if you're playing like 1 or 2 or just a few games, at some point in the season, every single one of these is going to happen to a player, but maybe not across a smaller stretch of games. So usually you'll see something kind of like this starting out, depending on how the games went. If it was against a particular opponent where they were able to do a lot of something and not do other things, as you can see here, there was a lot of offense in this small set of games I've played and not a lot of defense being played. But usually, the more games you play across the season, this starts to kind of round out in most cases. And games played is kind of like, I guess, a confidence interval, depending on what match day you're in. You know, for something this small, somebody could just get like lucky, have a good series if it's the only one they've played. But if somebody has this and, it's like we're on match day 10 now, they have 40 games played, they've been able to put it up consistently, you can be a little more confident that they're able to play that way regardless of the opponent. And yeah, moving on, the rest of these will all be a lot shorter than the last one because they all show less information. They're not as detailed, but it's just multiple players. So PR2, it just plots 2 players' radars on top of each other, and it'll have a background that corresponds to their average RPV. At the bottom, it'll show the tier, their RPV, and games played. Wait, there we go. PR2C, it averages their scores for each stat and then takes the Z scores and plots them based on what percentile they fall in. So going back real quick, this right here, you can see that I have, actually we'll use this one. So I have this was when I played 2 games and had 2 assists. So like really high maxed out score. He has one that's at like 30%. So you would expect them to meet somewhere in the very middle, like right here. But going over here, it's actually still pretty high because the average score is still a lot higher than whatever the like mean is for the tier. If two players' stats combine and they have like one that's out here in the outer ring, the upper quantile, I guess, they'll get like a different looking type of background than any combination that doesn't have a standout stat, and it'll list it down here and show their average RPV. PR3 is literally the same as PR2, but with three players. You can just type in any combination and it'll show them all here on top of each other. If you type in three players that are on the same team, it'll show the team name and have the franchise logo up here. And it's the same type of deal for PR3C. If it's three players from the same team, it'll list the team name and show the logo right here. And this is what one would look like without any like traits or attributes. And this is one that does have them. It changes up the background a little bit. All right, so moving on, PRM is one of the ones where you enter the team name. You just type whatever team in that you want to see, and it will like sequentially print out all four players' charts one by one. PRS is probably the most popular because the way it's set up, it will show all four players at once. If you have somebody that's on IR, they'll just fill in this spot where the franchise logo is and take that up. If you only have three, it'll just show three, but that's probably the most popular command outside of the basic one for one player, just because it shows all of the individual charts at once. And then you've got PRT, which is the same as PR3. You type in the team, it takes the three players with the most games played and shows their charts. And then PRTC does the exact same thing. It just averages all of the stats. And finally, we have prtier, which is the last command. So for any players that have subbed up a tier for like one match or have gotten promoted to a higher tier, whenever you run the command, it's always going to by default, just the PR command, it's going to default to the tier that you've played the most games in. So if you want to see your stats from any other tier that you've played in, you just do PR tier right here. You specify the tier you're looking for yourself in first, and then you enter your name, and it works just about the same. And then for players with multiple tiers, like I was using Daisy in the example, he played the most games in Rival. So if you start off a multiplayer command with somebody who's played in multiple tiers, it's going to use the one that they've played the most games in, just like the last command. So it thinks he's Rival here, and this is me. I've only played in Vet this season, so it's going to give you a tier mismatch. All you have to do to circumvent that is put the player in first from the associated tier that you want the other player to show up in. And then instead of it being a mismatch, it just shows both of us in Veteran. You're only able to like compare and contrast within the same tier for every single command on here. Okay, you can also run the bot on past seasons to look up players or teams from the past seasons. All of the commands except prtier, I literally just made that like a week ago. They go back to season 17, which is the start of what the sheet format was for season 17 to 22. So it was easy to kind of format that to do all of the same things for every single one of those seasons. Now, I will say that as of right now, the season 20 RPV sheet is currently down. So if you popped off in season 20, I'm sorry. I don't know how Google Sheets work. Old Sheets, the reason it can do the like current commands a little quicker is because it stores them in memory and it can usually access them pretty quickly because it keeps them loaded the entire time the bot is running. It doesn't do that for past seasons because past seasons get used way less than the current one. So Sometimes they can load kind of quickly. Sometimes it takes like forever for them to load. It could be like 30 or 45 seconds. But usually, if you're like trying to look at multiple things from a past season, you can like wait the first time and then it's pretty much instant after that. Oh, and also to do any of the old commands, you would just type in PR and the old season number. So it would just be like PR 17 or PR 18. And you can kind of see those over here. One last thing is for any teams in playoffs that make semifinals onwards, you'll get the team, it'll associate it with the team and put an indicator for it down here with the trophy. Bronze for semis, finalists, silver, and then champions, gold down here. And PR and PR3C are quote unquote usable for seasons 16 through 5. I put it in quotes because it's kind of the Wild West. Old sheets are weird. Some of them have like formatting issues. I just went ahead and set that up initially, and so people could try their luck with it and see if it works for those. Because there's some sheets I know that they're kind of screwed up. It's like people are in the wrong tiers. They don't have all the games, but it's pretty close to coherent if it'll run for a past season older than 17. And finally, the bot uptime and errors. It should run 24/7 and it restarts every 12 hours. And every time it restarts, it'll try to like cache all the sheets in memory so that it's usually faster for it to just work by loading, accessing the sheets online. But sometimes they'll do this and like disappear. And if that happens, it will go to the backup ones that it stores. It tries to update those every few hours in case any changes have been made to them. But you shouldn't have to wait more than like 3 seconds for the bot to respond to you. From everything I've seen in the past couple of weeks since I've implemented this, there haven't been any issues with it. I would only expect issues to happen around this time if it restarts and tries to store the sheets, and it can't because they're down. If it can't store a version initially, it tries it like every 10 minutes until it gets one stored to get that done as soon as possible. But if it has sheets stored, it won't try to update them for a few hours at least. And if you run into any other errors apart from like sheet loading ones, even if they are sheet loading ones, you can always hit me up on Discord, and people know that I'm not always the greatest at responding to their DMs. I forgot there was like a DM button you had to click from people that aren't on your friends list. You can also ping me in the RSC server, and I should respond to you.